Hey there, if you have any Amazon gift cards laying around from the recent holidays, something amazing you can do is actually to go to Duckfeed.tv/tipjar and use those with our Amazon referral link. This is an amazing way to help support the network, and we really appreciate anybody who takes the extra step. That step, going to Duckfeed.tv/tipjar and, doing the thing. Thanks.
Some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
And you're listening to Bonfireside Chat. It is a Ascended favorite.
Yes, it is a Slugmare favorite. And this week, we are alone again, and we are reading your responses to the end game of the main body of Bloodborne.
Yeah. So everybody came out in force. Thank you very much. And we're still looking forward to and looking for responses about the DLC. But
Which you can do at duckfeed.tv/contact.
Indeed, and we recommend you do. So I'm going to get started here with some follow-up before we actually get on to the responses from Ryan, who says via contact. In your recent Chalice Dungeons Part 2 podcast, you missed one interesting stop, and I thought you might want to mention it in case you inspired anyone to follow in your footsteps. Not that you were very inspirational in this instance. Right before the fight with Yharnam in the Great Thumeru Ihil Chalice, there's a final offshoot doorway that sounds like you understandably skipped, but just beyond the door is a bath messenger who sells the sinister Thumeru Ihil root chalice, as if you'd want to do more chalices, and the uncanny and lost versions of all the old hunter's weapons. I'd never seen any of the uncanny or lost as I went through the other chalices, and certainly wouldn't want to come back here, so that would be fun to stock up. It costs quite a few blood echoes to get them all, but now I've sated my inner collector and I'll probably never use them because they're just not that different. It might be worth noting that I already had all the normal versions. I don't know if they'd be available if you didn't. I just thought it'd be worth mentioning on the show. Considering the amount of time you put to get down there, a quick diversion and you can get some neat weapons that you wouldn't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
You can get them elsewhere. That bath messenger that sells all those things shows up randomly and frequently. So I've run into him I think he was in my route thing that I did. Jeremy Greer has a seed. You can do that. So thank you for pointing this out, Ryan. I'm not trying to invalidate that. If you want those weapons though, instead of going through all of the chalices, just go online and find a code, like a glyph, and you can just find one where it's like, oh, the bath messenger is right in the first room and they're right there. Yeah. So you can get those uncanny and lost versions easier than doing all the chalices. Yeah,
but it's cool that they put one in the main path, regardless, right near the end.
Yeah, and I like that they you don't have to have the DLC. So this is how you get, if you don't have the DLC, this is how you're going to get those weapons.
Yeah. Neat. So thank you for writing in with that. Now we're on to kind of the responses, the main body here. Brian writes in via contact saying, my favorite thing a game can do is to force a player to take on the role of the character they're inhabiting. I can take or leave alternate endings, but Bloodborne handles the distribution of them fantastically. If you're foolish and take what Gehrman says at face value, you'll swallow the blue pill and live your life in blissful ignorance of the true powers at play. Fighting Gehrman because you don't trust him shows you just how little you know, thinking you've taken down the ultimate power only to discover that he was just a pawn. So, how does one truly uncover the secrets of the Pale Blood Moon? The player must gain insight. You know the following before reaching the end game. The Old Ones search for surrogates for their lost children. Blood has power, and children of the Old Ones leave behind a third of an umbilical cord. You can learn from a note in the lecture hall that 3/3 cord has some kind of significance. Forcing the player to take these ideas and put them together into a cohesive thought provides such a satisfying revelation. It's the kind of mechanic that something like Indigo Prophecy wants to achieve, where the player's actions are in step with the character.
Yeah, like it is a puzzle, and it's not nearly as esoteric as something like, again, Sigmayr's Quest, to keep bringing that up, but like where it feels kind of unfair in how to solve it, Yeah. This doesn't feel like that. I mean, we had different reads on the blue pill ending, from the episode. Like, I'm not so against the blue pill. Like, I'm kind of into, like, the older I get, the more I think, like, well, whatever, if you're happy, that's great. Like people, it. If I used to think like I had a teenager attitude where I was like, happy people are dumb, and now I think like I'm not smart because if I was smart, I'd be happier. Like it's not like that. That's because what else do I got? Nothing. Like enjoying my time here is the only thing I can pursue, and the only thing that's like, I mean, not like entirely at the expense of other things, but like it is, that's the goal. Is having a happy life, and like just kind of torturing myself with knowledge that doesn't make me happy. Like that's a good thing to let go. I think, and that's so I'm not so against the blue pill ending.
Yeah,
and in the blue pill, come at me, MRAs. Like.
It's funny. I was going to go even further into that, which is it's an unrealistic ideal to say that that there is one kind of Ubermensch who needs to take the entire world suffering on their shoulders. That's kind of that is purely a construct of fiction.
Yeah.
And yes, it can be satisfying in fiction, and Joseph Campbell can go suck a dick for all I care. But it's like it just in something where your interpretation of this is going to really change depending on your personal values. It's really hard for me to to take the most noble and pure side of this. God, purity is such a dangerous concept. And read that as the most virtuous, Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to call you out for saying that. Like it's a video game. So like a hero narrative is kind of implicit in a lot of ways. But in real life, I don't feel like there's anything like I mentioned in the episode, like this is the game where I think the bad ending is kind of good.
Yep.
And understandable, Yeah. Sean says via contact. Hey guys, so happy to see that you're now covering the endgame of Bloodborne after so many months. As has been said before, I think this game has one of the strongest finales in the Souls series, if not the strongest. Even the worst ending is, I think, pretty satisfying, as a legitimate way the story could end, and the visual of the sun rising over Yharnam is beautiful. The you become Gurman ending is neat too, as it provides that cycle thing we've come to expect from the series, and fits into Bloodborne's themes and of iterations eventually succeeding, which plays into the best ending as well. As for the boss battles, I love the fight with Gurman since it has that classic Souls fairness. I think it's the strongest hunter fight until the DLC and one of the best fights in the game, period. Considering that it was the last fight for me the first time through the game, it was very satisfying to eventually master. The moon presence is a step down, but not by much. As big monster fights go in the game, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, more or less agreed.
I think the moon presence is good because it's over pretty quick.
Yeah, it's not, again, it's not my favorite, but it's not bad. It's not a big monster fight that is offensive.
Yeah.
I would never say it's bad.
Mm-hmm. It's weird because the way that it moves and how quick it is does kind of match the pace of Gurman's energy in his fight a little bit, and like they both use the arena in kind of similar ways.
Yeah. Did you know? I know something. The last time I fought Gurman, did you know that he can cut down trees?
Oh yeah, like he will go and cut through those. And I love the way that like those aren't trees; those are crucified beasts.
Yeah. They look like they're meant to recall trees, so I don't feel that bad about it. Like
no, but I mean,
they're supposed to read as such. But yeah, if they look, you look too close. But yeah, it's cool that he can cut them down with his scythe.
Crucifixes sometimes were called trees. It is said that Christ was born to die upon the tree.
Yeah, the back in high school, we had a friend who was Jewish, and he had this. They got him. We sent away. My friend Zach sent away for this pamphlet that was about converting your Jewish friends to Christianity.
Oh no!
As a joke.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
I didn't have a bunch of Christian friends. Like it was a joke. Yeah. But one of the things said like, try not to refer to it as a cross. Try tree instead. And it had like this like vocabulary guide that had that in there. And it was like, oof.
I was more knowing at the existence of such a pamphlet.
The
individual act of pronkery.
He loved it. It was definitely a goof.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, but thank you, Sean.
Yeah, thanks, Sean.
Yeah, Lane writes in via the contact forum saying, Bloodborne ended very strongly. I was utterly floored by that moment when you arrive at the Hunter's Dream, the only place of peace and rest in the whole world, and find it engulfed in flames. I felt so many emotions. I was scared, I was curious, and most of all, ready to find out what was next. I had found the locked gate very early in the game, and I had a suspicion that it's where I needed to go. The first time I went for the ending, I fought Gurman, and oh boy, what a fight. I believe this is one of my favorite fights in all of the Souls games. Such an excellent duel. I witnessed all 3 of the endings without seeing any spoilers beforehand, and I found that they all gave an interesting look at the game as a whole. I don't particularly love the fight with the moon presence, but that ending was awesome. Who would have thought the whole game would boil down to the hunter becoming a nasty little worm destined to be a great one? I hope my hunter evolves into a Cthulhu.
Yeah, he might. Yeah.
Cthulhu, go!
Yeah. The worm's got to do something. Worm's got to squirm.
Worm's got hoop dreams.
Yeah. The worm does have hoop dreams. All my friends are people who died. That's not even a reference to what we were talking about. That's from the Basketball Diary soundtrack.
I know.
So like I was just like thinking about it's kind of fits with what happens there.
Yep.
Poor hunters. Steven says by contact. After waking up back at the Hunter's Dream and finding that the house was on fire, I was actually taken aback at how quickly I had come to the end game. It was certainly quite a sight either way. Since my thoughts on Gurman are tied to the DLC, I'll hold those for later. The fight itself was beautiful, and was my second favorite pre-DLC. Since my first build was poorly leveled for the endgame, and Migolash and the Wet Nurse are very easy bosses, I actually wasn't able to beat him on my first go-round, but an excuse to play through the game again was welcome. This was also my favorite main game music track from the OST. Hearing the strings swell as Gurman and I dodge nimbly around each other in a white field of flowers with a mansion burning behind us is such a wonderful moment that gave me chills and totally was the reason I kept dying, not my ineptness as a player. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's a pro tip for anybody who wants to write in. If you're going to say something's your second favorite, let me know what your favorite is, because I'm curious about that.
I guess that's true. Yeah. But I like how everyone keeps saying pre-DLC, though, which is a nice little preview for how badass the bosses are in the next area we're going to. That's a good yep. Real froggy like.
Yep.
Yep. You said it, Gooch.
French fried potatoes. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
But yeah, the bosses in the DLC are superb. Or at least, 3 of 5 of them are like some of my favorites. Well, 2 of 5 are like some of my favorites in the game, and then
one of them. Okay, well, one phase of one of them.
Yes, and one of them has my favorite name though.
Okay,
I think there's a name in the DLC that unseated Murgo's Wet Nurse for me. So.
Yeah. You've taken some heat recently for your stances on the Bloodborne OST.
Yeah, people like it a lot more than I do. Yeah. I think it's boring. I can't remember it. I listened to a song and then I couldn't hum it for you if you asked me to. Like, yeah, it doesn't stick out for me. Like, it doesn't. Yeah,
I think Demon Souls is an unfair yardstick.
Well, Demon Souls is excellent, but when I was arguing about it on Facebook not arguing about it was civil, but talking about it, and then somebody brought up the Ancient City, and I realized like part of it is just, and we talk about this in all of our shows, like I'm bored by the Hans Zimmer singularity. Like, I don't like everything sounding like a movie soundtrack. And the thing about the Ancient City and Demon Souls soundtrack is they sound faker. And I think that's what it is. Like, that instrument palette appeals to me. It's not orchestra. It's not like new classical music. It's not a theme score. It's weird old synthetic music. And like when you have that kind of, when you can't rely on texture as much, you have to rely on melody. And that's why 8-bit music is so appealing to me as opposed to 32-bit music. You have to apply do melody if you can't do texture. And like the Bloodborne music relies a lot on texture and not very much on melody, and that's just always going to appeal to me more. Like if we include the Ancient City, I think that's my favorite soundtrack of the 5. Like, I love that soundtrack.
No, it's so good. I listen to that every other day at work when I'm trying to concentrate. Like, just like I've got one playlist that's that mixed in with the Breath of Fire 3 soundtrack, and then like some like Mort Garson like 70s synth exploration of like occult theme stuff.
It's super, super good. Like that soundtrack is incredible. And the Demon Souls one, like, it's so like it doesn't want to be epic a lot of the time. Like, it's just like plotting and queasy and gross sometimes. And like I always think of the Adjudicator theme, which is just like a sideways fart, like a sick boy's fart. Yeah, like it's so obese sounding as music. And I'm like, oh, this is perfect. Like this works really, really well for this. So yeah, the Bloodborne soundtrack didn't do it for me. It's not like inside. I don't, before anybody freaks out, like I didn't love the Dark Souls 2 soundtrack either. Like, Dark Souls is really novel. but then Demon Souls and Ancient City are where it's at.
We try not to play the games with our shield up, but we podcast with our shield up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Let's see here. Graham writes in via contact saying, by the time I got to the end of Bloodborne, I had no flipping idea what was going on with the story. I tried to put together a plot explanation in the earlier parts of the game, but as the game progressed and more surreal, weird jackassery piled up in the narrative, I got lost in the story and kind of just gave up trying to understand it. Despite being totally confused, I knew that the confrontation with Gehrman would be the ultimate fight, and what a final boss he was. With Gascoigne being my first boss, Gehrman unintentionally became a perfect bookend for the game. Both bosses are aggressive human fighters with very similar skill sets to the player. Gehrman's fight only exemplified what I loved about Bloodborne's combat. He might be my favorite final boss in the Souls series. After the fight, I'm in a wheelchair being pushed around by the level up doll. The credits roll, and I just scratch my head. Thank you, Bloodborne, for being the lycanthropic Victorian cosmic horror story directed by David Lynch that I never knew I wanted. Yeah.
I can see it. This is one of my favorite M bosses, but I still think I like Gwyn more. For reasons that we talked about in that episode. But like Gwyn is not a better fight as far as, difficulty, but I feel like the elements work so well in that fight.
Yeah.
Like that it's not difficult, it's intentional and great. Like I love that Dark Souls ends on an anticlimax.
Yeah.
Like there's no sense of bombast to it,
Holistically, it's such a nice bow. Right.
Yeah, like I really love that. But the is actually like what I would want to sit down and play with my hands. Like the kinesthetically, like the Gehrman fight is tops.
Yeah.
And King Allant is False King Allant's really good too, and is very similar to this. But that kind of fight is very, very, very strong. This is probably I probably like this a little bit more than that.
Yeah. I'm about to say coming hot off the heels of, and by that I mean a year later. But coming hot off the heels of Nashandra, boy oh boy, are all of those fights you just mentioned much better than the Nashandra fight?
Nashandra's not very good, but I actually like Aldia.
Yeah.
Like Aldia's, I think Aldia's a good final fight for that game, but Nashandra's not great.
No.
As a fight. So
yeah.
Robert says via contact. Video games across the board often have difficulty presenting its audience with an unhappy ending. The player has fought hard to reach their goals, and they're expecting to be heralded for their actions. Otherwise, they may sign a misguided Change.org petition demanding an alternate closure. I think it's a Mass Effect reference, and I don't even like Mass Effect.
It is. Yeah.
Okay. Japanese RPGs often include multiple endings, both good and bad, but the bad endings are almost never considered canon and often require jumping through numerous hoops to reach. Humans do not win in Lovecraft stories, and how could they? Faced with eldritch abominations, they are either destroyed outright or their minds are shattered at best. Lovecraft's protagonists may find the truth, but that truth is irrevocable and unrestrainable. A video game ending that adheres to these conventions is still a rare and gutsy move. Even a few Lovecraft-inspired games, such as Eternal Darkness and Shadow Hearts, have positive outcomes if the right choices are made. I didn't know what to expect from Bloodborne's endings, but I was impressed and thrilled that the game kept with Lovecraft's worldview instead of taking the easy way out. Each of the game's 3 endings involves the player succumbing to a more powerful force. You may succumb to Gehrman, resulting in banishment from the dream without closure, or outright death, depending on your interpretation. You may succumb to the dream itself, replacing Gehrman as its administrator and eternal servant, or you may succumb to the will of the Great Ones, cast off your humanity to become their heir/heiress in otherworldly ambitions. The overarching message sounded across the endings is clear. Things will never be the same, and it's mysterious, foreboding, and fantastic. In the case of the last ending, I do think it's a little weird that the story is continued in Splatoon, but hey, inappropriate tonal shifts are what JRPGs are all about, right?
Yeah, they cut out
become a kid and a squid.
Yep, I was going to say, the final question Gehrman asked you is not accept your death, but it was kid or squid.
Are you a kid or a squid? It's always time for the hunter's helper to determine. It makes it sound like it's.
You sound like Gehrman's from Boston.
Hey, are you a kid or a squid? That was in Boston. I don't know what that was. But hunter's helper then makes it sound like noodles and sauce mix you add to eat hunters when their kids are squids.
Yep.
Yeah,
with a little bit of ink.
Yeah, makes them chili mac with ink squid sauce.
Ugh.
That's gross. If you like, I mean, I think that Robert is super on point. Other than the fact that I think that the death ending is just literally you refusing to participate in the Lovecraftian narrative. But it does keep that as an option, which nobody in Lovecraft stories do. But
well, there's nothing saying he doesn't hang himself in an asylum cell later.
That's totally true. Like that's probably the unintended postscript.
Mm-hmm.
It's an acrostic if you read all the developers' names. So.
Oh yeah, no, but that's on point. It's weird. I think we're far more charitable to that ending than a lot of people are.
Yeah, I think that people probably, because I wonder if they just thought that like that was the afterlife where you actually died or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I really don't think so, given the fact that there are people in the real world, like, or there are hunters out in the real world who made it out. Like, I feel like that's the path, because they had to get out somehow. If they dream D4 and no longer dream, why not? Like, they didn't become Germans, they didn't become slugs.
Yeah,
they had to do something. I think that they got killed by German.
Yeah, and we're not quite squaring the circle with why they appear in the dream if we're to take the real world as the dream, but yeah.
That's true.
I don't know. That gets into stuff that I don't feel there is anything in the text to support one argument or the other, so we have to.
Yeah, I don't actually know what's real.
Yeah, neither do I. Doug writes in via contact saying, "So I thought I got the bad ending for a while, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that they're all bad in true Lovecraftian fashion. I wound up taking Gurman's place, since my actions rendered only 2 of the chords obtainable. I thought the ending where Gurman severs you from the dream and you end up waking in sunny Yarnum was the good outcome, but consider this. The sunny ending occurs if you slay Murgo. But that is a prerequisite for all of the endings. Supposedly that quest was undertaken to end the Mensis ritual, and by extension, the Beast Plague. After all, Nightmare Slain, right? The Gurman ending implies you take over as custodian of the hunter's dream. But if the nightmare was truly slain, the hunt is over. So what are you presiding over? The Flaming Workshop was to imply the purpose of the dream is fulfilled, and being no longer necessary, it is being consumed. The only way the dream would still need a keeper would be if the hunt continues, so the sun ending must not be a lie. This is also true of the slug ending. Becoming an infant great one also implies that the hunt is over, since the system produced the sought-after cosmic reproduction. But your slug form is with the doll in the dream. Since the hunter's dream still exists, it may be that your slug form is like Rom or the brain, a great one technically, but not a true heir, not the true heir that Erden wanted. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting trying to view these endings not only separately, but how they play off of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
I'd be curious. I kind of want to go back and watch some of the footage from the specifically the you're a slugmare ending, and really any of them, to see if you're in the hunter's dream or if you're at the workshop in the real world, quote unquote.
Oh, would you be able to tell?
I have no idea.
I don't know if you'd be able to tell based on the camera angles and the like that
they're
super
tight. Yeah,
it's super tight. I watched them again today, and I don't think that you'd be able to see. But the idea of them kind of setting up shop in the actual, like, that is interesting, because then what if it's, because there's already a doll there.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Not that they don't.
Maybe this slug was deposited in the quote unquote real world, and that doll becomes alive. Yeah, in the slug deposit box. Yeah, and you just drop them off at a church or fire station or a workshop, and you're all good. 30 days, you're set.
Yeah,
it's Mensis, right? Once a month.
Yeah.
But maybe the doll comes alive. Again, body hopping, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, body hopping, bottle popping. With top models, grooving. Drinking 40s, with the shorties. Because that's interesting. I just never considered the idea that you might be in the actual real world shop.
Regardless, the kin ending, Slugmare, right? Doesn't that remind you of the ending of Shadow of the Colossus?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I guess, that's true. I didn't actually put that together, but you're right. It does. Given
Miyazaki's affection for that series.
What a good. Let's just do that again for Watch Out for Fireballs. Like, what a good game. Shadow of the Colossus. I love you, Shadow of the Colossus. All interesting stuff to think about. Yeah, but that definitely reminds me of that ending. Kylo says via contact, Bloodborne is less about blood than sight, Eyes feature prominently in enemy designs, and insight is referred to as eyes on the inside, so we should pay special attention to characters' relationships to eyesight. Alfred is a stand-up bro when you first meet him and only covers his eyes when he perpetuates one of the most gruesome acts in the game. When the executioners have Annalise beaten, they don't chain her up, they trap her in a mask that blocks her eyesight and make her tower invisible. The Beast Plague affects the eyes, the eye of the blood-drunk hunter, and the character, that's an item that shows up in the DLC, but it's not really a spoiler. And the characters who have contracted it cover their eyes with bandages. Gascoigne, Amelia, Blood Minister, Afflicted Beggar. They're blinding themselves to their sickness and end up becoming beast because they won't face it. Many characters have similar relationships with sight. The bigoted old man wears his rumpled hat low over his eyes, and we know he's untrustworthy. Adela is facing into a wall when we first meet her because she can't bear to see the horrible position she's in. Further, Adela hates you for talking with Ariana, which we know it's because she looks at you when you do. The only character with naturally restricted eyesight is the blind Erden Chapel dweller, who is genuinely a nice person the entire game. There are a lot more examples and a lot more situations, especially in the DLC, but in relation to the endgame, this can tell us a lot. If we choose to face the Yharnam sunrise, we live through the night and saw another day. We see the sunrise and do not look back. Does this mean we're forgetting the truth that we've learned? Jura and Eileen speak of the hunt, but not of the eldritch nature that lies at the heart of the conflict. If we take the Honoring Wishes ending, we are captivated by the moon presence, and we watch over the hunter's dream, unable to look away from the dream and becoming trapped within. We know this is horrible since the night blocks all sight. In the childhood's beginning ending, we may have evolved, but into something that cannot care for itself, something helpless and without eyes. It's ambiguous, but I believe there is a solid clue to the ending of Bloodborne. The only character who truly has eyes on the inside is the plain doll, and she tells us over and over to find your worth in the waking world. I can see that meaning either the Yharnam sunrise or finding personal worth outside the Dreamy Weemy game itself. So in the real world.
Yeah. Supporting the, hey, you know what? Just the real ending is turning off the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I'm always a fan of.
Yeah.
Spec Ops.
Why'd you say that like the Sega guy? Spec Ops!
Like that commercial. You thought you were a hero, didn't you? Spec Ops. How many people were alive in Dubai yesterday? Spec Ops.
Yeah.
But what a good response.
I know, right?
That's really good. I think like some of it, it not necessarily meaningful that Jura and Eileen don't talk about Eldritch truths. Mm-hmm. Like they don't get that far into it. They're in Yharnam. So they don't cross the Bergen border, or anything like that. So but it is interesting that they don't, if they had been like, holy shit, there's Amygdalas everywhere. Like you'd think that that'd be useful.
Yeah.
Useful information.
So two things. I didn't really until he listed all those off, I didn't realize how many people had their eyes occluded. It's fucking everywhere. Even Jura, he has half of his face covered by bandages I'm looking at. And then Eileen, she's got that mask on.
Yeah, she's wearing a crow mask and we don't know what kind of
situation she's got on under there. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. No, I definitely noticed it. Like everybody's,
Yeah.
I
noticed it with the statuary on specific people for sure.
Yeah.
I kind of saw that, just kind of like, okay, yeah, that definitely makes some sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Kylo is saying that the this specifically occluding your eyes is to not see what's happening or to turn away. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting. Like that's that's an interesting. I mean, I feel like there are in-game explanations for why people cover their eyes, right? Like, doesn't it say? It says on the choir blindfold, I think, and it's to see better with your fake eyes or your eyes on the inside or something like that. Like,
it's to fake it till you make it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I really like that thematic explanation. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to read the first Just Fun In as well.
Yes.
Because it's short. I don't want to read two super long ones in a row. Mm-hmm. So in the Just Fun In section, Willem says via contact, I know this message is sort of mundane, but my name is actually Willem, and I absolutely love seeing some pathetic zombie man in a rocker that is important as shit with the same name. It warms my heart seeing anyone pronounce my name correctly as Willem and not the usual William.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Happy to indulge.
Yep. It's the least we can do.
Yeah, the least we can do is say your name right. Whenever anyone, if somebody's like, I'm like, is it Jimmy or James? And they're like, oh, whatever you want. I'm like, no,
let me know,
don't
please.
Give that to me. It's you. I don't need to have that kind of dominion over you.
God. I'd too many times when I was young that I used the haha, I'm just saying the fun version of your name. And sure, only my mom calls me that.
Oh yeah.
It's okay, well.
Yeah.
Okay, William.
Yeah, okay.
I won't call you Billy. All right.
Yeah.
So more just fun in here. Jeff writes in via contact saying, I wonder at the interpretation of frenzy as a Call of Cthulhu-style madness mechanic. After all, the game already has a mechanic in place to cover that particular aspect of cosmic horror role-playing, and having more than one with different names seems a bit messy and un-Souls-like. Instead, I like to think of them as opposites, referring to insight and frenzy being opposites. Insight is what you as a character accumulate as you learn more of the eldritch truths and witness more of the hidden world, the great ones, and the great ones all around you. It makes you see the world differently and dispels illusions. It also makes you much more sensitive to frenzy, which in my theory doesn't represent your character's understanding of cosmic reality. Instead, frenzy represents how aware how aware of your character that cosmic reality is. So saying the reality is aware of your character, right? Consider the primary situations in which frenzy is a mechanic in the game. When a false god grabs you and focuses on you next to Erden Chapel. When the Winter Lanterns have direct line of sight to you and not the other way around, which makes sense of that particular irritation. While they hold onto the character in their mind, the character is subject to the effects. Maybe the bar continuing to fill after you've broken line of sight represents the lanterns continuing to think about you for a brief time. The brain of Mensis seeing you in the nightmare of Mensis is the same way. In the case of the Winter Lanterns and the brain of Mensis, their attention is so piercing and thorough that it manifests physical spears that pierce your character and the poor dead hunters all around you. There are some holes in the theory. When the eyeball pigs breathe on you, or Briatus pukes blood on you, you accumulate frenzy, which is dumb no matter what theory you personally believe. Why not one of the other two poison types in the game, huh, Miyazaki? But I really like the idea of cosmic entities so powerful and so alien that they literally pin poor hunters to the ground with manifested spears of thought and attention. It highlights the ineffable nature of the Great Ones and their servants, and makes intentionally attracting their attention seem as dangerous and reckless of a mechanic as it is in the lore. And then he goes on to say nice things about us, which is cool, but he also concludes, also, seriously, fuck frenzy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yep.
I don't think, like, when you say it's two things that are sloppy because they're in place of the same thing, I think I said this in the very first, like, Bloodborne Basics episode, is that insight is not meant to be your sanity score. It's meant to be your Cthulhu Mythos score, which is, so in the tabletop game, there's two different numerical representations that have to do with this. One is how much you know about the Elder Truth, and then one of them is how affected you are by it. And they function differently, and that's how I always viewed frenzy and insight in Bloodborne. But I like this idea too.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think it's necessary, because I don't think it's just because I'm saying it's not necessary doesn't mean I don't like it or it's not good. But I don't think it's necessary because of it's not really duplicating the same thing.
Yeah.
Like and they have an interplay in the tabletop game as well, but they're not the same thing. So, but yeah, it is a cool idea.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
yeah.
it explains the line of sight thing.
Yeah,
a little
sure.
bit. Like, none of it makes the mechanic good, but, like, you know, it can soften the blow at least of I don't get as angry at it while still being very angry.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks for reaching out and coming out in force. And if you have anything to say about the DLC, please hit us up at Duckfeed.tv/contact.
Yeah. And you know most of the stuff to do. The tip jar, the Patreon, Facebook, any of those kind of things. We like seeing people tweet about us. If you have any responses to the show, that is cool. That is a great way to spread the word for about the show, which is always appreciated. Yeah.
And if you'd like to join us, financially, and would like to help us out and talk to us in chat rooms all the time, head on over to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv, and you can join our Slack channel for $2 a month, which is not very much money, and it helps us out a lot.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate it.
Yep.
And so we'll be back in a couple of weeks with the first of the DLC episodes.
Well, in 1 week. As you're hearing of this.
In 1 week as you hear this, yes. 2 weeks as we're recording. And here are some deleted scenes.
Umbasa.
and we all pray that we will have far more soon.
Did you watch the Did you happen to watch the new Mr. Show? Watch Bob and David?
Yes.
Yeah, because the one of my all-time favorite like phrasings where it's like, "Do you eat like a baby with money?
Do you eat like a giant baby with money? Fuck
I think
your
that's
body." Yep, no, it's perfect. Like
It's
Chris,
really incredible.
I hadn't watched it yet, and Chris watched it, and he said, with Bob and David, first episode, 1740. And I went right there. He was like, yep, it's the best thing.
Yeah, it's really apt. Like it's you just have a couple days of eating like a baby with money, and then I just finished the Tim and Eric book, the Zone Theory book, and they have a whole chapter on like our zone scientists think that food may be connected to health, and it's all about like this shadowy connection that they can't quite explain how food interrelates to health. But it's also disgusting because in Zone Theory you only eat foods that are white. And like, the way they're put together is really fucking disgusting.
I'm not aware of this book or what Zone Theory is.
Oh well, Zone Theory. It's their fake. They have a fake like self-help.
It's like book, like Dianetics kind of thing.
Yeah. It's pretty funny. It's well worth reading. It's really gross. There's like a page that's like one of the things is this like categorizing your penis stench. And like the descriptions of these penile stenches. Here, let me I took a screenshot of it to send to somebody because it's really incredible. It's whatever the opposite of poetry is, like poetry not used for beauty but
As violence.
Penis stench. These are the 5 most common penis stenches present in 99.9% of PP, penis people. Canned sauerkraut.
Ugh.
The smell of old 33. A sour, pungent, overcooked smell reminiscent of misused, people have pissed in it, hippie food, in a composting bin on a hot summer day. Fermented herring. A salted stink bomb. A gruesome smell of fish that has been embalmed and brined in a tin can for a quarter century. Rank and overpowering. Hold on a second, because it minimized it. Egg cum. Deviled probo semen. Probo is the word in Zone Theory for your semen.
Okay.
The dried up and kicked on probo from a fat man who eats half a dozen eggs each day and then masturbates onto his belly without washing his hands or cleaning up afterwards. There are bits of egg directly in the penis and entrenched in his probo as well. The resultant smell accurately described as homemade mayonnaise from a discredited recipe. Discredited. Oh, that is a really perfect word there. That's so good.
I like the idea of a central governing body of mayonnaise.
Yeah. This recipe has been discredited. It has been banned in some countries. Like homemade mayonnaise from a discredited recipe is one of my favorite like turns of phrase that I can think of in a really long time. That's very evocative. But yeah, you should read Zone Theory if you get a chance. It's pretty funny.
I will take a look at it. Mm-hmm. Speaking of crazy things, did you read that the Silent Hill wiki thing?
Yeah, that's really great. I need to like there are references to it that I don't understand the full absurdity of it because I don't know the source material.
Yeah,
it's still like a really fun crazy hole though.
Oh no, I mean just there's really nothing like what's crazy is nothing in the text supports what he's saying, so it's pretty much entirely just the Illuminati government and dark religion. So like all of the commentary, specifically the Voidberger put in there, has references to stuff, and like that's where the majority of the of like the subject matter can help you understand it. But like within it, the joke is that he's not like just there's nothing that he can pull from.
Yeah, it's really bonkers.
Yeah.
Is very bonkers.
My favorite thing in there was his argument that he is in the best position to do this because he was 4 years old when when Silent Hill came out.
His qualifications. It's real good.
It's kind of like whenever somebody leads with their qualification as lifelong gamer.
Yeah. Oh, congratulations, buddy. Like,
Oh, man.
so a friend of mine was telling me about this thing where they interviewed somebody at his work, and the job like required like customer service, interacting with people, and the guy, his qualification after they did it, asked if he would be okay. He said he'd been dungeon mastering for 15 years.
Uh-oh.
And then when they were good, they got his name and stuff after they did the interview. He said, "That's my name. Nobody calls me that. Call me Grim." Like it sounded amazing.
What was
Like,
what was this friend?
It wasn't DMing. He had been LARPing. That's what it was. I've been LARPing for 10 to 15 years or something like that.
I was gonna say, like, okay, DMing, like that has a little bit of, you're dealing with people and you're resolving disputes and you're like doling out information. I can still, but LARPing?
Yeah, no, it was definitely LARPing. Like
wow.
That's why they're good at customer service.
Yeah.
Grim was good at customer service. Call me Grim.
It just, if I told you the story about my second grade like orientation like open house. This was the summer, or it was the fall right after the summer that I spent playing a lot of Final Fantasy IV and or 2, whatever. And we're going in and talking with the teacher, and they're like giving me the whole spiel, like, this is the year it gets serious, Kole. This is when the teacher's like, we're gonna require a lot of responsibility out of you. And here's 7-8-year-old Kole looking up and saying, "Well, I've been playing Final Fantasy, which is kind of a responsibility game."
Oh no. Ooh.
Which,
oh boy.
Yep. No. In my mind, again, 7-8 years old, I was thinking, I'm keeping things alive. I'm keeping numbers up. It's cool.
Yeah. That's rough though.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. I don't think if I was in real life and like there was a kid who said that in front of me, I wouldn't be able to laugh at him or make fun of him. I wouldn't want to, because it's a kid, but at the same time, like, I'd be like,
yeah.
Like, come on, buddy.
I don't remember what the reaction was aside from, I don't think she had any context for it.
No. She just thought you're just like, I like video games.
Yeah.
So
yeah. But just whenever I see anything or hear anything like that, like, and that you get soft skills from doing all this kind of stuff, right? But all I can do is think back to just the revulsion that I feel now as a 28-year-old man, thinking about when I was a quarter my age, and saying that thing when I didn't know better, and I had all the best intentions.
Yeah, but that's a bad thing to say.
Yep.
Shouldn't say that. Let's go to the principal's office for that.
Well, all right. Well, I'll go back and make sure not to do that again.
Yeah.
When the universe collapses back on itself and then re-expands on the next cycle, I'll make sure.
I thought it'd be like a Billy Madison-esque scenario where you have to redo second grade in order to not say that.
Oh, I'm pretty sure Mrs. Taylor's dead as fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. You should probably write a note and leave it at her tombstone, though. Like, her ghost is probably restless at this point.
I'm sorry I said dumb video game things.
Yeah.
And I should also just leave that on my gravestone.
It's true. That should probably be written on. There are probably several gravestones, which that should be written on.
I'm sorry I said dumb video game things.
Yep. Yep.